what I want to talk about is the potential of Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury. I've heard a few people talk about this, and when I say few, I mean a few people. I feel like there's more people that should be talking about this because this is a very real fight that can happen. I know a lot of people are kind of brushing it off to the side. Nah, man, this is real. This is as real as it gets. That this fight can go down, and it's. I don't want to say that it's going to be a super close fight if it happens, but it's a lot closer than a lot of people will say. Now, let's start with why. Why would this fight happen? First of all, Francis has to win tonight. And if he wins, he continues his knockout streak. This is a very marketable fight, and it is a very real fight that will happen. The reason being, on Francis's side, Francis tonight has been betting on himself, similar to what Deontay Wilder did before when he didn't sign that DAZN deal with Matchroom Boxing, all of that. He bet on himself, right? And it paid off. He got paid out for that. But we never got to see that AJ fight. Francis has bet on himself in the UFC in the sense that he hasn't re-signed with the UFC. He knows, okay, I'm going to knock these guys out. And really, when you look at who his opponents have been, we can go ahead and share the screen right here. His opponents have not been easy, man. So we're looking at Francis Ngannou right here. Let's see. They gave him a bit of a killer's row in the sense of, let's go up to the top. We'll go to mixed martial arts record right here. Since he lost to Stipe, since he took that loss, he's learned a lot. He took another loss to Derek Lewis, but that was almost like you could almost call that like a no contest because it wasn't really a fight. And he was definitely shook. People were saying like, man, he needs to see a psychologist, sports psychologist, something, right? But since then, he's been on a tear. 5 knockouts in a row. And these 4 right here, all first round. And if you add up the times, man, it doesn't even add up to 3 minutes, I don't believe. So first of all, he knocked out Curtis Blades for the second time. He had already knocked out Curtis Blades before. He knocks out Curtis Blades in 45 seconds. I believe at the time Curtis Blades was the number 2 or number 3 ranked fighter in the UFC. Then he fights Cain Velasquez, the former heavyweight champion, somebody who a lot of people were saying could have been the greatest heavyweight of all time, knocks him out in 26 seconds. A lot of people were trying to say, oh, his knee gave out, this and that. Nah, he got caught with an uppercut. Then he fights another former UFC champion in Junior Dos Santos, knocks him out in 1 minute and 11 seconds. So 91 seconds, it's all it took for him to knock out former champion Junior Dos Santos. And then he fights Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who's had, double-digit years of experience in kickboxing. I want to say he had like 75 kickboxing fights, something like that. Huge experience gap in the striking, and it took all but 20 seconds to knock him out at UFC 249. So, knocks all of them out, and the UFC wasn't playing games, man. It took them a whole year in order for him nearly to get his rematch with Stipe, and when he did, we saw a completely different Francis Ngannou. We saw a much more reserved Francis Ngannou. We saw a patient Francis Ngannou. We saw a Francis Ngannou that was throwing feints, that was throwing short shots, not just winging, because a lot of people, especially boxing fans that hear me say, oh, he's going to fight Fury, people that don't know Francis Ngannou, the first thing they're going to do is rush over to YouTube and look up his highlights. They're going to see crazy swinging, winging shots, and they're going to go, oh man, this guy has no technique. He doesn't even know how to fight. Similar to Deontay Wilder, he does that when it's time to go for the kill, right? So if you're going to judge Francis Ngannou, judge him based off of the difference between this fight and this fight, and the maturity that he showed and the evolution that he showed within that 3-year span. Judge him on that. And then if you want to look secondarily at the knockouts, then you can add that to your opinion when we're discussing this. But okay, that's on Francis's side, sure. This is the last fight on his contract, making him a free agent. So now, as a free agent, he can either renegotiate with the UFC for an extended deal, or he's free to do whatever he wants, which would be going into boxing. Remember, this wasn't what Francis Ngannou wanted to do. MMA was an opportunity for Francis Ngannou. He just said, okay, let me do this. Let me make some money doing this. And he became the champion of the world. He wanted to become a boxer. So not only is this an opportunity for him to chase his dream, but the opportunity to fight for a world title in his first fight. It most likely won't be for the WBC world title, but that Ring Magazine belt needs to be on the line. And the Ring Magazine title, I'll tell you right now, guys, is the real title. All those other belts, we're gonna call those secondary belts because they're all corrupt. The Ring Magazine is the real belt. If you don't know what that is, it's the belt that you see Rocky, all of them have. It's got the red, white, and blue, the gold emblem in the front. That is the heavyweight belt. So Tyson Fury, what's his deal going on right now? Wasn't he was going to fight AJ? That fell through to the arbitrations with Deontay Wilder. He had to fight Deontay Wilder again. In the meantime, AJ had to fight his WBO mandatory in Alexander Usyk, and I was on the podcast saying he was going to lose that fight, and he did. Alexander Usyk, people were sleeping on this guy. Dude, this guy he was like the cruiserweight version of Lomachenko in the sense that they're both Ukrainian. They both have great footwork, angles, and a high IQ, boxing IQ. Not to mention, man, I've been saying for years that AJ really isn't all that. And that's what we saw. He almost even got knocked out. So he's going to have to rematch. He activated his rematch clause with Usyk after he lost. And now I think he's going to lose again, man. But in the meantime, there was discussions of let me quit sharing that. There's a discussion of, okay, could we still see an undisputed fight with Fury versus Usyk for all the belts? That would involve step aside money, right? We would have to pay out Anthony Joshua. And there was a rumor that just went down that they would have to pay out Anthony Joshua upwards of $20 million. Guys, that's a lot of money to not even fight. And I'll tell you right now that Fury versus Usyk, while it is a huge fight and it's for all the belts, it still isn't a huge marketable fight. I mean, here in America, people still don't really know who Usyk is. They know who Fury is, but I don't think it really sells like that, man. So for them to be able to give Fury an appropriate amount of money, because it's going to have to be at least double what the step aside money is going to be, and then Usyk will have to get more than what step aside is. We're talking about damn near $100 million fight, $80 million fight, at least $90 million fight. I just don't know that fight will produce that. So that's pretty much out of the question. But Fury was, with his WBC title, mandated to fight Dillian White. Here's the issue with that fight. The issue is Dillian White, as an interim champion, per WBC rules, is supposed to be able to get a split of 45-55. Now, Bob Arum and Top Rank made an appeal to the WBC saying, listen, Fury's the name. Fury's the one who's going to bring all the revenue. He's the top guy. We want it to be an 80-20 split, and the WBC approved it. Eddie Hearn and Dillian White had something else to say. They said that is completely unfair. That is against the rules, and we are going to combat that. So they are currently in litigation. I guess they're suing the WBC. So that's holding up that WBC fight. In the meantime, Top Rank and Bob Arum have been speaking about another fight for Fury. They have to give him another fight this spring. So the top names that have been coming up are fights that nobody cares about. They're talking about Robert Helenius, which, while I admit that would be a good fight, especially after Helenius' 2 knockouts over babyface, big baby, Kaunaki. It's still, nobody's still really knows who Helenius is, and then Manuel Char, who really nobody cares about. I mean, that's like that. I guess I would sell in Britain, but other than that, if you're going to do a pay-per-view, you're not really selling that much. Or you can fight the new free agent the UFC heavyweight champ, in a fight that's never ever been seen. The UFC heavyweight champion versus the boxing heavyweight champion, the two baddest men on the planet. Dude, I've been saying that when it comes to pay-per-views, you have to sell to the casual fan. Us hardcore fans are going to buy it no matter what. But the casual fans are the ones you need to get to buy the fight. Those are the ones you need to get to talk about the fight. Why do you think Jake Paul's been able to explode onto the scene? Because everybody's talking about Jake Paul, right? So everyone was talking about Mayweather versus McGregor. That's why, and we saw how successful that fight did. This fight will explode with the casual fans, and you'll have two different audiences that tune in. You'll have the MMA fans and the boxing fans. Everyone's tuning into this fight. I think it does huge numbers, but I think it really comes down to, is that the fight that Tyson Fury wants? So let's see. What fight is Tyson Fury talking about? Is he talking about? We're right here. We are on Tyson Fury's Twitter page. We'll start from the top. He's showing his old belts. And there's a lot of tweets where he just talks shit about these two guys, saying that they aren't really that good. He says, he's on record saying that Deontay Wilder would spark both of them out, which I agree. I think Deontay Wilder would spark both of them. I think against Usyk is actually a competitive fight. But if he hits him, Usyk's going down. But look what Tyson Fury is retweeting and what ESPN Ringside is posting. They're reposting Tyson Fury's tweet. The Clash of the Titans, Francis Ngannou, Las Vegas, boxer versus UFC heavyweights, all eyes on us. Top Rank Boxing, ESPN, very exciting. They'll be able to market this fight because all of UFC's highlights, fights, everything is broadcasted by ESPN. ESPN will have the rights to broadcast all of those knockouts. So they will be showing that in all of the promotions. Right here, I think this would be absolutely amazing fight. Tyson Fury has his sights the Clash of the Titans with Francis Ngannou, and he's talking about the Francis Ngannou fight. Francis Ngannou, he's talking about it again. He's talking smack about War Chisora, which that's not a fight that would happen. Throwing shade at these guys. Throwing shade at Klitschko. He's really only talking about the Francis Ngannou fight. So we have to really take it from the promoter. And the promoter is Bob Arum. Bob Arum hasn't said anything. Bob Arum and Frank Warren, they haven't said anything about a fight with Francis Ngannou. And I'll tell you why. If you watch the Jake Paul press conference post-fight, they were asking about Nate Diaz. And, are you working on a fight with Nate Diaz? His manager swiftly intercepted that question and answer and said, we are not in any sort of discussions. Nate Diaz is under contract with the UFC. It was a very PR answer. And that leads me to believe that previously when they talked about something like that, they must have got some sort of a cease and desist letter from UFC's lawyers saying, hey, you guys can't be talking about this or trying to negotiate with fighters that are currently under contract with us. So when Bob Arum's talking about, we're working on Manuel Charr, we're working on Robert Helenius, those are essentially backups. But as soon as Francis Ngannou fights and wins, if he wins tonight, once he vacates that title, because I believe there's some sort of a championship clause where if you win the championship, you're automatically re-extended as long as you hold that championship for at least another year. I want to say, if anybody else can correct me on that, please. But if he vacates that title, now he is officially a free agent. And that's where you're going to see all the media come out. You're going to see Bob Arum talking about it. You're going to see Tyson Fury talking about it. You're going to see Francis Ngannou talking about it. ESPN is going to be all over the place. If Francis Ngannou wins tonight, next week, Maybe the week after, because who knows? Francis Ngannou might still sit down with the UFC, have a conversation. But I don't see where they can bring any sort of amount of money that is going to get even a fraction of what he can make fighting Tyson Fury, and really the legendary status, the gold that you would win, the award of being the boxing heavyweight champion. Who knows? As far as a breakdown of that fight, we'll have to see. I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. I am just simply articulating what could happen and all of the different variables that nobody else is really speaking about, it seems. So, that being said, we'll see what happens. He's got to win tonight.